Welcome to the Forged by Steel podcast. This is Shane McDonald. We're recapping the Pittsburgh Steelers 2024 NFL Draft, and this is the second draft with Omar Khan at the helm of the official title of GM, and this is, just the process is so much better than what I think we expected in the past. And it's hard to talk about Kevin Colbert because obviously they won 2 Super Bowls with him as the general manager. So there's not much you can say about him in a negative light. But over the last 5 years of his tenure or so, and of course the way he went out, and I know he was trying that last year to set him up with a quarterback of the future and do the things that he said he was going to do. But, most GMs don't go through that process. Most of the time, the new GM gets to experience the whole offseason that first year and not take over right after a draft. Usually it would be during a season or after a regular season. And so, anyway, we can't change the past of how that happened and how horrible, at least to this point, what that 2022 draft class looks like at this point. But since then, and in 2023, very impressed at the time with the draft picks then and the process on the day of the draft, and then also later on in the year, what the actual results became. And so 2024, more of the same. And I know a lot of people give Andy Weidel a lot of credit as far as coming in and, hey, they're going to be great up front. They're going to have a great offensive line. And, man, have they not acquired those players. From Broderick Jones last year and then adding in Fautanu and Zach Frazier. It's just exciting. And of course, that it's not even including Mason McCormick. It's almost like they have almost prepared for the departure eventually of Isaac Seumalo or Jaden Daniels. Or James Daniels, I'm sorry. And so this is a very encouraging draft. So first up, of course, in the first round, and all of you guys were sitting right there with us and just wondering what is it going to be leading up to the draft. I think most people, if you looked at I think one of the biggest indicators right now is that the 30 visits that the Steelers get, Omar Khan is taking that very seriously. Check those out every year because it looks like those are going to be significant to the draft process. If you remember last year, Broderick Jones, Keanu Benton, Joey Porter Jr., and of course, obviously those were high draft picks, but also Nick Herbig, also actually, Herbig was not a 30 visit, but obviously his brother's on the team, and they were they did have meetings with him in separate locations. But also Darnell Washington, which of course was their first 4 picks, were all 30 visits last year. This year, the top, Fautanu, Zach Frazier, Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, and... Well, actually, I say Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson was not, but Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin were at the Pro Day, which obviously is also another huge indicator. And Mason McCormick was 30 visits, so actually only one of their top 4 rounds. So 4 out of 5 of their first 5 picks were 30 visits. And, of course, I'm sorry, I'm miscounting again. Did I say 4 out of 5? 4 out of 5. But so, it's hard to do math live. But so just obviously a huge indicator as far as top 30 is concerned. Also, waiting and leading up to this, we thought tackles were obviously going to be big. They had 30 visits with many of the first-round tackles, or at least what we assume based on mock drafts and things of that nature. I don't like to get too much into that because every team has their own board, and we don't know exactly what that is. So when we say, somebody was value on draft day, it's hard to say that. but I think most of us considered Fautanu one of the top tackles. He ends up being the 6th tackle taken in the first round, it's kind of surprising. I realize some people are so hung up on the height which I believe he's like 6'3 3/4 or something of that nature, and they're so hung up on it that they believe he could be a guard, but obviously he's kind of an anomaly because his arm length is so long, and usually that's the reason that you see people get moved from outside to inside with linemen. But so Fautanu, of course, you guys have seen enough analysis of that, but really you watch his film, he's aggressive, he's nasty. I think every interview it looks like he has a Steeler mindset. He's a Steeler fan, which is a fun thing. But he really does a great job as far as, like, he had great run blocking ability and combo blocks inside. I thought, and especially look at him when he's on an island, like when they have him out and then we're talking about one-on-one pass protection. He really does a great job. And so has good footwork, good hands. Could he be a day one starter? I think right now, everybody would like him to be. I think he is projected by most people to be a tackle, and I know there's the big argument, does he play left or right? Most of his time in college is at left, significantly most of his time. I believe it's over 1,000 snaps at left tackle. But understanding, too, that Broderick Jones is a left tackle as well by trade. So either way, I think this just plays out in camp, and the player that adjusts the best to right tackle is the one who does it. And I know that Broderick Jones did it last year, but I don't think I never felt like he was comfortable there. And so that's why I'm hesitant to say that Fautanu is just automatically the left tackle. So we'll see what happens. I think he could play multiple positions. I think if I had to guess right now, I would think Fautanu is going to be the right tackle and that Broderick Jones is going to be the left tackle. That might be a hot take because I know a lot of people don't believe that right now, but I think we'll see what happens. But so anyway, Fautanu falls to us at 20. I think a lot of people thought that, they would try to get a Marius Mims or someone of that nature. I was never really a fan of his just because of, obviously he has all the physical tools and he's a freak, but couldn't stay on the field. He only had eight starts at Georgia and couldn't stay healthy for the pro day or the combine. And it's a continuous thing. And so and they had to have a separate pro day so he could actually run and participate with a hamstring issue. And so it just seems like it's constantly something. And sometimes you see that with people that are like freakishly huge, which Marius Mims is. There's no doubt about that. And of course, we'll see a lot of him. He ends up going to the Bengals. And so, I was actually happy when the Bengals drafted Mims and that we would be going in a different direction. Great question for armchair quarterbacks. If Fautanu's not there, what do you do? And I've wondered that myself in a lot of the pre-draft process. Fortunately, we don't have to know. All the corners were available. Obviously, they had 30 visits with, Nate Wiggins. They could have went corner. They could have traded down. All of the centers were available as well, including Graham Barton. That may have been something that they wanted to do as well. Anyway, but that leads us into the second round. And I will say that, since the NFL draft has shifted from the weekend process to Thursday night to Friday night to Saturday, usually that day is so painstaking to me because I just want to know who are they getting in the second and third round. And especially this year, because I knew as soon as it looked like, and it just appeared this way, that Frazier, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Graham Barton would probably be taken maybe high second round, maybe late first. And so Graham Barton goes relatively early, and then it's Jackson Powers-Johnson and Zach Frazier, and you say, man, what if one of them could fall to 51? and spent most of Friday just thinking about this. And then we get to the actual second round in the second. I don't know about you. I know how I felt. The second round was hard on me. I had to, after Zach Frazier was picked, I was so elated, so excited, but also like I realized that I'm getting too old to get that stressed out about the draft, because that was fun. That was fun waiting for Zach Frazier and hoping that he's going to fall, and he did. And I was kind of surprised when Jackson Powers Johnson was picked that we didn't move up. Who knows what the options were if they miss out on Zach Frazier. There were plenty of other centers that I was interested in. Van Pran has played a lot of football. I'm not terribly impressed by his film or anything like that. There was Norzad at Penn State. Of course, Mason McCormick is a guy who may have ended up being an option for them later on too. But all of those guys, the reason I was concerned is the Steelers situation. The situation for the Steelers is basically this guy had to come in and play now at center. And if we waited for it, what are we going to do? There's virtually no free agents available that have significant experience starting in the NFL at center, and it would have been a really desperate situation. So really glad we didn't have to do that. We may have had to trade someone. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter anymore. Zach Frazier is the man. And what a fun background he is. If you haven't had a chance to look at like some of his wrestling clips, he was an amazing high school wrestler. Only lost 2 matches in his high school career, and they were both his freshman year. Won 4 state championships as a wrestler in high school in heavyweight. Like, can you imagine how difficult that is? And just watching the clips, how much he uses his leverage, how good he was at it. It's just fun. It's a fun prospect, and I can't wait to watch him. I'm so excited about that. And I know I'm an offensive line guy to begin with, so I get excited about that. But I'm telling you, one of the fun things about being a Steeler fan is I think Steeler fans really love offensive line play, and you're going to see some good stuff. And, hey, we're expecting a second-year player in Broderick Jones and 2 rookies potentially to play a ton in Frazier and Fautanu. Is there going to be some lumps? Are we going to struggle at times? Sure, but it's going to be fun. They're very talented. They're going to be very good, and I think in a very short amount of time. And they're all road graders. I mean, I think pass protection, there'll be times where things don't go as well as we want it to, but as far as run blocking is concerned, you add Darnell Washington into that, it's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully everybody can stay healthy, and we're going to find out today about Najee Harris's 5th-year option. I assume that they're going to continue to do that. Of course, if you're not aware of that, this is Najee Harris's 4th year. He's going to be on the Steelers regardless this year, but this decision has to be made by May 2nd for the 5th year, and I believe they will pick that up. It's about $6 million, which is not egregious for a tailback of his caliber. I'm not trying to say he's a home run hitter or anything, but he's got a lot of carries and a lot of yards, a lot of production. So moving on, so the first 2 picks, loved them, couldn't have been happier. And then, of course, as soon as that happened, as soon as Zach Frazier comes off, you start worrying, well, now what receiver is going to drop into the 3rd round? Because I thought the 2nd round was a great spot for a receiver. In a normal year, it might have made a lot of sense to take a corner in the 1st round and a receiver in the 2nd. That might have been ideal, but obviously with our situation, that wasn't possible based on needs, best player based on needs. And then we get to the 3rd round. It's Roman Wilson who drops. And, of course, there were a couple of other options there, including Franklin from Oregon and I believe Dez from North Carolina was also there. Good players, but I was really excited about Roman Wilson. And he is 5'10", and I know a lot of people get concerned about, hey, he's not this big, huge outside player. I think a lot of people believe he's a slot, and a lot of people are worried that he'll struggle against press coverage. But he is a great route runner. He's shifty. He makes plays. He's a great catcher of the football. His hands are tremendous. And so these are the kind of things that I think about. He's obviously highly competitive, and you can tell that. And I don't think, and I know this sounds bad, but I think everybody that's been a Steeler fan for the last 10 years or so at least understands what I'm talking about. He doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that is going to get upset because he don't get the football and throw fits and not block. He's very physical, high effort kind of guy. And he came from Michigan, where they would go entire games, or some of their biggest games of the season, they ran the ball continuously and didn't get him targets. And he was probably their best receiving option. And he made big-time clutch plays down the stretch in their national championship run. But I also think about that, and I know you can make the same argument for like J.J. McCarthy, is if they didn't throw the ball very much, there's a lot of upside here. Maybe Roman Wilson fell a little because of his production. And obviously that's a huge benefit for us if that is the case. Watching him at the Senior Bowl, I think they also prioritize guys that played at the Senior Bowl. Later on, their late picks played at the Shrine Bowl. Check out the practice film of Roman Wilson. A lot of them are against like Quentin Mitchell from Toledo, really good corner. He is an exceptional route runner. He can make plays. He's going to be a really good football player for us. And, hey, unfortunately for him, he's going to have to play now. And he's going to have to be an impact player now. Tomlin even told him that on his phone call when he was drafting him. And he's right. They need production now. So hopefully he's the guy. I'm really happy with the pick. I was excited when they made it. They obviously had two third-round picks this year, and the second of which was pick 98. And a lot of people at the beginning of the second round, I think that this is where they really got a lot of value, is that in the second round, I think a lot of people thought, hey, Roman Wilson's going to go there. Peyton Wilson's going to go there. And Peyton Wilson falls all the way to 98. And, of course, Ian Rappaport got on TV immediately after the draft pick and said he has one ACL and he had a bad shoulder surgery, which, from what I understand, there hasn't even been any reports of that part of it. He had a surgery. I don't know that it was bad. And this, I think digging a little deeper into this is the part where the first thing is that obviously the Steelers do their own medicals, and so they weren't concerned. That's the first thing. Second thing is that we've seen guys play without ACLs before, which if that's even the case, we're just saying, I don't know if that's the case, that he doesn't have an ACL. That's what was said on the NFL draft. But he has injured his ACL previously, and obviously he re-injured it, I think, when he was a high school freshman and then hurt it again going into college. But he's had 2 healthy seasons the last 2 years, and it hasn't been a problem. And obviously you saw how fast he ran at the combine and how fast he is on film, which is tremendous. This is kind of like the prototypical looking linebacker that you would see nowadays. And I know nowadays people use the term off-ball linebacker. He's extremely fast. He's downhill. He can play the run. He reads blocks well. And he can cover. And he's a splash player. Interceptions, forced fumbles, sacks. That's his game. He is the man. He's everywhere. He's a big-time impact player. And so he stays healthy. And I know a lot of speculation now about, is he going to play pretty quickly? Because, who knows if Landon Roberts is going to be a 3-down player. I don't think that's ideal that he is, and he had to be last year because of injuries. But will Peyton Wilson play more in those situations? It's a good question. And I think you have to look at the history too. Like last year was concerning to me at the beginning of the season, the way they treated some of the rookies like Broderick Jones and Joey Porter Jr. and even Keanu Benton, is that it took a long time for these guys to play. And so, we kept putting out there Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace and Shannon Sullivan for long periods of time, many, many reps against very good football players and good teams before, and it kept saying Joey Porter's not ready. And of course every time he would play, he would make significant contributions, and then by midseason, he's shadowing the best receivers on the other team. So I hope that changes this year. I hope that these guys get more of an opportunity in training camp, and some of them are able to earn spots immediately. I really hope that's the case. And I think with Zach Frazier, there's not a choice. But I really hope Faatanu can win a job. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with Dan Moore, and maybe he requests a trade. Who knows? He doesn't seem to be that kind of guy. But obviously, most people, people want to play, and he's obviously started in the NFL for 3 years. So who knows? We'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll bring him to camp, and we'll figure it out there. In the 4th round, kind of the first big surprise for me, they drafted Mason McCormick. Like I said, he was a 30 visit. He's from South Dakota State, small school. But you can watch his film. He's a mauler. He's an old-school-looking guy. Love it. He got a neck roll and everything, man. I think they had a highlight film that's got Motley Crue on it, man. And that's football, dude. Him just going downhill, killing people. And when I obviously killing for PC folks, I'm talking about just destroying guys. And so just a phenomenal prospect. And who knows what happened there. Obviously, I think in a perfect world, we would have said, hey, well, they need help at corner. Maybe they'd go corner. Maybe they would go defensive line because it was such a significant pick in the 4th round, and there was some talent there. But they ended up going McCormick. McCormick obviously won't start to begin with unless there was an injury. They're pretty set with Daniels and Siamalu, and you'd imagine Frazier. But I think the thing is he can play center. He can play guard. He's very, of course, NFL teams love guys that have versatility and can play multiple positions up front. And that helps him. He has a great chance to make the team. What does it say about Nate Herbig? You know what I mean? I think there's some guys on the back end of the roster, even Dylan Cook, and I think they like Dylan Cook. But some of these guys may be someone may be on the way out when McCormick gets to camp. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, Herbig has played center at times, but maybe McCormick becomes more of a more attractive option because he can play center. And maybe the case is that they got to the 4th round, they realized this guy could be great, and they liked him a lot. And maybe they said, hey, if they didn't get Frazier, they would have went with him anyway. So they do it, and I've got no problem with it. At the time, I was kind of questioning it in my mind when I first saw it. But obviously, I've watched more of him since then, and I understand it. And I think the good thing about all of their picks now, the last 2 years, is that I can watch their film, and I can hear about them, and I can read about them, and I understand why they picked them. I think sometimes in the past, especially at the end of the Kevin Colbert era, there were guys that they would pick that I'd say, man, I don't know what they're doing, and sometimes that would play out, which you hated. And I'm not trying to say I know more than people who spend so much time that invest so much into this, but they just seem questionable to begin with, and then a lot of those times it didn't work out. But these guys on the front end, and they may not work out either, but right now you understand why they picked them. The next pick was Logan Lee. The 6th round pick, I think a lot of people thought that this draft was thin and that a lot of the 6th and 7th round guys, wouldn't even be on rosters. But the Steelers picked 2 guys that have a shot to really make the roster and have some upside. Logan Lee, I didn't know much about him beforehand. I knew they had brought him in for a 30 visit. They were very interested in Logan Lee. One thing I've noticed about the Steelers is that their 5 techniques, the guys that they play at 3-4 defensive end, they are 6'5", 300 pounds. That's what they like. And all the guys they look at are about 6'5", 300 pounds. And that's been the case for a long time now. And so guess what Logan Lee is? He's not quite 300 pounds, but he's 6'5", and he's about 280. And I think eventually he has the type of frame that he could get up to 300 pounds. And I think that may be the goal, is that eventually he can get there. He flashes on film at times, but he also has long periods of time where it's like, where is he? And so he's a project a little bit, but of course, 6th round, that's what you're expecting. The Steelers have a bunch of I hate to say this, they have a bunch of just guys in the depth of the defensive line. I'm not talking about Hayward, Nogan, Joby, and Benton. And even Adams. I thought Montravius Adams had a better year last year. But they have the guy they just signed from the Vikings. They have Lowry. They have Loudermilk. They have DeMarvin Leal, which is a big training camp for him. Most of those guys are just good run stuffing players that they can rotate in. It's not high upside. They're fine. They're solid. They do their job. And you need guys like that. And I think Logan Lee has a chance to make the team, has a chance to push one of those guys off the roster at the end, and maybe an upside for more. I think when you look at his body type and stuff and some of the upside plays that he made in college, getting off blocks and making plays in the backfield, you think about Brett Kiesel. He blocked a field goal at Iowa. Maybe he could play special teams and make the team. Maybe a year from now, we're saying, hey, he's something for us, and I hope so. The last pick was at 195, and that was Ryan Watts. And probably I shouldn't say like most people. Maybe you did know who he was, but I had never watched Ryan Watts. I was not aware of him. And when you look at everything that he is, the package, it makes a lot of sense. He's very long. He's huge. Good-looking athlete. He can run. His film's not tremendous. He doesn't have tremendous ball skills or anything like that. Could he play safety? And I think that might be interesting, especially because the depth at safety is not tremendous. Also, the depth at outside corner is, just a lot of good-looking athletes, a lot of people that we think have upside like Trice and Rush and now Watts. Similar body types, similar late-round picks. Of course, Rush was picked up off I think it was off the practice squad. But I did like him through the draft process last year. But so if one of those guys hits, if two of those guys hit, that would be tremendous. I know a lot of people expected big things from Trice before he got injured in training camp last year. So I think it's more exciting. I know there's a lot of people that say at the defensive back position right now, getting impatient, saying, hey, this group doesn't have much experience. They don't. But I know people might say, well, hey, what are we going to do? And, of course, in the undrafted area, they got Beanie Bishop from West Virginia. That was a guy I thought they might draft in the 6th round, and lo and behold, he's there. He's undrafted. Really got a shot at making the team, especially right now when you look at they don't really have any options at slot corner on the roster. Now, could they add Cam Sutton? That's a question for another day. They have met with him. It is possible. Obviously, will he get suspended from the league? I understand he has a misdemeanor for his domestic violence situation, but the NFL doesn't care if you get charged with a crime. They will still suspend you. We know about Ben Roethlisberger and countless other examples throughout the years. But so, regardless, and I know that his was not domestic violence. Okay, I understand that. But regardless, we don't talk about that. We're not a law show or anything. But so, the overall draft class, very impressive. And just to kind of look at too, I said Beanie Bishop for a chance to make the team. And, of course, I don't know a ton about the undrafted free agents. But, I think people are going to be excited about John Reese Plumlee being in there, quarterback, just a good athlete. I don't know that he has a chance to make the team. They do have Kyle Allen to be their third quarterback right now, who has started games before. But biggest thing was Dejon Edwards from Georgia. And, of course, they do have Cordero Patterson now. I do think there's a chance that Patterson is just listed as the third running back, and if they had to have him, that's what he would be. Of course, he's a kick returner, and that's why he makes the team. But I think Dejon Edwards has a chance to make the roster as well. So at least there's some intriguing options from the undrafted class this year. They don't have many of them, but I think about last year, I don't know that I thought any of them would make it. And this year, there's a chance. There's a real chance that a couple of them could. And so that'll be interesting as well. Hey, we're not too far from some big dates. Of course, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, the weekend of the 10th, May 10th, there's going to be the rookie mini camp, and I can't wait for that. Just to kind of see the pictures and look at the guys in uniforms. Just fun. I just enjoy this time of the year. I enjoy the entire process. And so I don't know about you. I'm jacked up. I know everybody's talking about it. We're getting praised from every major source. And so it's fun to be on that side of it. It's fun to have a great offseason. And they're probably not done. They'll probably add some veteran, at least one or two. Maybe at receiver, could be a trade. Who knows? I think they'll add a slot corner. That could be Cam Sutton. That might be what they're waiting on. And if it's not Cam Sutton, there's still plenty of other options as well. And maybe it's Beanie Bishop who ends up making the roster there. But they'll upgrade at those positions. Don't worry about them. I think people get freaked out. People were freaked out before the draft. You kind of have to let the draft play out. And I worried about center just like anybody else, but they had a plan and they wanted one. And, sometimes you see a lot of mock drafts that had them not getting a center and think, what are you thinking? What are we talking about here? Do you think this team's going to go in with Nate Herbig as their center? No, they weren't. And there was no way that was going to happen. And so people just overreact to things that Omar Khan says. Just know Omar Khan is not going to tell us anything in the media. He is very smart. He knows what he's doing. All you got to do is look at the results, look at what he's done, but don't listen to the stuff that they say in the media. Right now, he's saying they're not close at picking up a receiver, and of course, they always follow that with, "Hey, we like the room we have," and so people are saying, "Yeah, they just love the room they have." They're still looking, guys. They're still looking. So just know that. Like, hey, if it's cost too much, if people want a first-round pick for these receivers, DK Metcalf and Ayuk, that's not going to happen. They're not going to trade their first-round pick for it. But if they could get him for a third, a fourth, who knows? That might be a possibility. And so just stay tuned. Just know that this roster is not complete, but, man, it's coming together. And later on we'll have an episode where we actually try to predict the 53-man roster and go through every position. I enjoy doing that on my own, but I haven't really done that for the podcast yet because I don't think at this point there's going to be some more additions. So maybe we'll do an early version if you want to hear it. But so anyway, I've talked for too long on here. I just get excited. Let me know if you guys have anything you'd like to hear about or what your opinion is of each of these players. And and the other thing too, I would suggest, guys, is something I started doing about 3 or 4 years ago is go watch these guys on your own. If you look up Roman Wilson, all targets, on YouTube, you can find everything, his entire season, all of his targets. Watch him. It don't even take very long. You don't have to be some film junkie, which, I've been a middle school and high school football coach for a long time, so I enjoy the film process. But if you don't like it, you can watch it in 10 minutes. You can search for West Virginia's offense 2023 and just watch the offensive plays and watch Zach Frazier every play. Just watch him. Because a lot of times what I think people do is they rely on PFF to tell them if they're good. Watch the guys. Watch them. Get NFL Plus, man. If you get a chance to get NFL Plus, watch all 22 of the Steelers. That's fun stuff, man. You really can get a chance to see how good are these guys. But anyway, hey, hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for listening. Peace out.